BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to BBOR, the home of true crime talk radio and your premier destination for unsolved mysteries, criminal psychology, and exploring the dark side of cyberspace. My name is Ned DeHaan, and I am your host, as well as the creator of AstroPsych 400 here on YouTube, and regular contributor to the Zodiac Killer channel. And a great way to support these shows is just by listening to some more content. But you can also go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse, written by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is indeed fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And there is always the TeeSpring page. Feel free to check out some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Let the show begin. This episode of Black Box Online Radio is brought to you by Rep Sports and Raze Energy. Are you a fan of energy drinks, protein shakes, and health foods? Well, I sure am. I use the stuff almost every single day. They sell Raze Energy products at my local gym, but you can have them shipped to your home. Use the coupon code NED075, that's NED075, for discounts applied at the checkout. The link is in the description box. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Today is Friday, and before we begin, I would like to drop a couple of announcements. The first one is giving a big thank you to everyone who listened to the recent episodes that I did about the murder of George Young, as well as the one that I did yesterday on the Steve Wilkos show, talking about true crime in the media, a subject of absolute fascination for me, and thank you to everyone who left comments on those episodes. And please look out for a Zodiac Killer debunking episode that will be coming out this weekend. And this is going to be the first of many episodes in Zodiac Killer, the Linkletter Connection. In 2020, I did a 3-part series on the Zodiac Killer suspect, Robert Linkletter, and the second episode was mostly focused on his sister, Diane Linkletter, who passed away on October 4th of 1969. So there are 2 questions that I'm going to be exploring throughout the series, and an honorary third. The first is, was Robert Linkletter the Zodiac Killer? The second is, what truly happened to his sister, Diane Linkletter? And the honorary third question is, was Diane Linkletter a Zodiac Killer victim? Diane Linkletter passed away after she fell from a 6th-floor window onto the ground right beneath her apartment in Hollywood, California, and it was the kitchen window that she went out of. Now, there are lots of theories online that say that she was murdered, that she was pushed. There is also a lot of media coverage from 1969 that simply says that she was high on drugs and that she jumped out of the window. And then there are other theories that say that there were no drugs in her system and that she was just someone who was very troubled, and she was a 20-year-old woman who was worried about a lot of things, had a lot on her mind, and she had a lot of mental awareness issues, and she took her own life on her own accord, not under the influence of any drug. So I thought the first thing I could do for this series would be to read Tom Bleeker's book, Diane Linkletter, A Princess Wrongly Accused. And I was tempted to do this series because I had wanted to pick up the material again at some point, and Tom Bleeker actually wrote into the channel saying very clearly that he does not believe that Diane Linkletter committed suicide, and he also doesn't believe that she was murdered by her brother Robert Linkletter. He has a suspect named Ed Durston, which we will hear about in this episode, and he believes that Ed Durston murdered Diane Linkletter because he was attempting to rape her and she was trying to run away, but he knew that Diane's brother was en route to the apartment, so he pushed her out of the window so that he wouldn't be charged with attempted rape and possibly some other criminal charges. It's a very big story, but you see from the beginning We have theories, we have possibilities, we have suspects. I really felt that the story of Diane Linkletter was requiring further examination. Diane Linkletter is, of course, the daughter of media personality Art Linkletter, and Robert Linkletter, her brother, is also the son of Art Linkletter, and he became a Zodiac Killer suspect rather early on, earlier than a lot of the people that I've talked about on this channel, because the host of the show Dialogue Conspiracy back in the 1970s, Mae Brussel, even talked about Robert Linkletter as a Zodiac Killer suspect, and they provided some explanations on that show as to how he could have committed these crimes that occurred in 1968 and 69. First, Robert Linkletter would have been 24 years old during the entirety of Zodiac activity. His birthday was on October 15th, and he was also someone who knew how to alter his appearance very frequently, and he had a habit of altering his appearance very frequently, and I think that's the material that Mae Brussel was reading off on her show, which I responded to in the past, and she said that, she was provided this via a source, that he was known to change his hairstyle, his beard length, he was known to wear different types of wigs, and these things come up in the Zodiac Killer descriptions. That's why you have conflicting reports of the perpetrator's hair type and hair color. Like you have somebody after the Blue Rock Springs shooting on July 4th of 1969 who had reddish curly brown hair, and then you have the person who has the very short light-colored hair after the Stein shooting wearing the crew cut that is seen in the composite sketches. But I've always said that I thought the strongest aspect of the Linkletter connection to the Zodiac mystery is the chronology. It's the timeline, because Robert Linkletter, as I said, was born on October 15th of 1944, and the Zodiac crimes get closer and closer together as they get closer to his birthday. I mean, the frequency of activity. First, you have the Lake Herman Road murders on December 20th of 1968. Then you have the Blue Rock Springs shooting on July 4th of 1969. Then the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969. And on October 4th of 1969, there is the death of Diane Linkletter when she fell out of the apartment window, or maybe she was murdered, pushed out the window by forcing someone. And then there's the Stein murder on October 11th of 1969, exactly 1 week later. And then Robert Linkletter's birthday is 4 days after the Stein shooting. It's like the crimes are getting closer and closer to the anniversary of his birth, almost like a finish line. And in the past, when I was reading about why Diane Linkletter would have possibly been murdered by her brother, the Zodiac Killer, and this is all alleged, of course, he has never been convicted. These are all unsolved cases, I mean, to the best of our knowledge. And it is that by October of 1969, a lot had been published about the Zodiac Killer, even things in the paper. And did Diane Linkletter know that her brother was the Zodiac? Did she figure it out on her own? Did she recognize something? Did she put two and two together? And did that compromise his creation of the Zodiac persona? These will all be questions that I'll be exploring in the series. And in this episode, I do want to talk a lot about Diane Linkletter as just someone who may have not been a victim, and just look at the other possibilities surrounding her suspicious death. But there's one final point that I want to say about Zodiac Killer timelines, and that is I notice a very strong similarity to this theory about Robert Linkletter and the crimes getting closer and closer to his birthday, whereas what Robert Graysmith, author of Zodiac, did was the exact opposite with Arthur Lee Allen. And it's not only Graysmith, of course. I mean, other people could be very much aware of this, but Arthur Lee Allen, the prime suspect in the Zodiac case, perhaps the most famous Zodiac Killer suspect, was born on December 18th, 2 days before the Lake Herman Road murders, and then the crimes are actually getting further and further away from the anniversary of his birth. So which one is it? I just wanted to point out that there are other suspects that have unusual features surrounding the anniversary of their birth date, and the Zodiac Killer crimes. And with the other possibilities in Diane Linkletter's life. I said that I've started the book Diane Linkletter, A Princess Wrongly Accused by Tom Bleecker, and I got on his website and I found out that he has written a lot for movies and television. He also has numerous books out on various subjects, even one about Bruce Lee. And he begins the book by talking about how he knew Diane Linkletter personally, and they were even engaged at one point when she was 16 years old and he was 18 years old. They were romantically involved. And as far as this thing about her being high on LSD and jumping out of a window, he states that in the entire time that he knew her, she never took drugs, and he never even saw her drink alcohol. And as I said, Tom Bleecker wrote into the channel, and he accused a very specific person of being responsible for pushing Diane Linkletter out of the window, and that was Ed Durston. And Ed Durston is, well, I have to confess something to you guys. I was listening back to the episode that I recorded in 2020 about Diane Linkletter, and I said that Ed Durston was 27 years old at the time of her death, and then I said that he passed away in 2010 at the age of 88. And, like when I was listening back to the recording, just like anybody else would, I was like, wait a second. If somebody passed away in 2010 at the age of 88, oh, I mean, there's no way that they were 27 in 1969. I am not a math person, and no, Ed Durston was born on September 10th of 1921, so he would have been 48 at the time, just passing his 48th birthday. But there's a reason why I said that, and I got a little bit confused. I'm pretty sure that I was aware of this at the time, but there's another person out there named Ed Durston. There are two Ed Durstons in this story. The first one is someone who worked in the media business, as did Art Linkletter, Diane's father, as did Tom Bleecker. But there's David E. Durston, who is referred to as Ed Durston. And I'll just read this section here that's actually been posted on Wikipedia. In January 1985, a man named Edward Durston accompanied actress Carol Wayne on vacation at the Las Hadas Resort in Manzanillo, Colima, Mexico. Did I really say that? I didn't say Mexico. I don't know why I slipped into el español por un momento. After the pair argued, Wayne reportedly took a walk on the beach. 3 days later, a local fisherman found the woman's body in a shallow bay. An autopsy performed in Mexico revealed no signs of alcohol or other drugs in her system. Her death was ruled accidental. A man named Edward Durston had also been present during the death of actress Diane Linkletter in 1969 when she jumped from her sixth-floor Hollywood apartment window. Her death was blamed on the drug LSD, but the toxicology test found no LSD in her body after she died. Durston reported that he visited the young actress after a phone call at 3 a.m. Linkletter was distressed and unhappy. After making some cookies, they sat up talking. At about 9 a.m., Linkletter went to the kitchen and didn't return. According to the report that Durston made to the Los Angeles homicide detective, Lieutenant Norman Hamilton, by the time he went looking for her, he was too late to prevent the young woman from jumping. She went over the window. I tried to grab her, and she went out, said Durston. Linkletter died from injuries caused by the fall. A Los Angeles-based car salesman named Edward Dale Durston, born in 1942, may be the person associated with both mysterious deaths. He has frequently been confused with David Edward Durston. And to be clear, David Edward Durston is the guy working in the media, and Edward Dale Durston, both of these guys are Ed Durston, a car salesman who would have been 27 years old at the time. What do you mean that this car salesman is getting confused with the other Ed Durston? I know that it was in 1969, well over 50 years ago, but we're not talking about something from ancient Egypt. I mean, you'd think that there would be a little bit more clarity by this point. So I think we're going to be getting some answers in that mystery first. I mean, that's another honorary fourth question that has to be thrown in. Which Edward Durston was responsible for the death of Diane Linkletter? If Tom Bleecker's theory is correct, perhaps a more appropriate way of phrasing that is, who was present during the death of Diane And when I looked up into this case in the past, I read that the story from Ed Durson was that he saw Diane Linkletter trying to jump out the window, but he was too far away to stop her. But, I mean, you just heard in that little piece of text right there, he tried to prevent her from jumping. Well, I mean, would that not create some type of markings, or would those types of physical tracings be similar to what would be encountered in Tom Bleeker's theory, that it was an attempted rape and that she was cornered and trapped and she was simply just trying to get away, and then she ran into the kitchen and then she was forced out the window because someone didn't want to get busted for a type of criminal action? I'm really not sure, but it seems like the media is all over the place when it comes to their reporting. And the Linkletter family also seems like they have been affected by a lot of tragedy. Not only the death of Diane Linkletter in 1969, but Robert Linkletter would go on to pass away in 1980 at the age of 35 in a car crash. As I said, he would have been 24 in 1969. And when I was doing Zodiac Killer recordings on BBOR back in 2019, I really thought that the Zodiac Killer would be on the younger side. Part of it was that I was influenced by Eddie Seda, the New York Zodiac copycat, who was in his early 20s at the time. And I was also watching some videos from Jordan Peterson, a psychologist, who talked about how that there is a correlation between creativity and deviant behavior in males, particularly between the ages of 16 and 25, and this can lead to a lot of very destructive behavior, as well as simply illegal activities. And that thing about creativity really stood out to me because of, well, the Zodiac Killer isn't someone who is only committing murders. The Zodiac Killer made phone calls after 2 of the crimes. The Zodiac wrote letters. The Zodiac wrote ciphers, leaving a message on a car door. He was taunting the police. He was bragging about committing crimes. And there was something that I also thought tied in with the creativity angle. That was what I was thinking back in 2019. Now, in 2022, at the time of this recording, I definitely think that the Zodiac was someone who was a lot less creative than originally thought, because so many of the things that are included in the letters and the ciphers are from literature, or they're from comic books, or they're from music, and operettas like The Mikado, Gilbert and Sullivan. And I mean, yes, I was aware of that one at the time, but I wasn't aware of the absolute extent that there are so many influences that could have possibly been identified in the Zodiac writings. Another one that's very famous, for example, in the 408 cipher written by the Zodiac Killer, it states that I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than hunting wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. That's very similar to The Most Dangerous Game, or maybe a text that was inspired by The Most Dangerous Game. I mean, there's a film called Bloodlust that was inspired by The Most Dangerous Game that was made in the 1960s. So it depends on what source the person's actually quoting. On the Halloween card, there's a symbol from the Red Rider comics. It also says by rope, by knife, by gun, by fire. That could possibly be from a Tim Holt comic book. And there are other people out there who have some more, I was about to say far out theories, but maybe just esoteric is a better way, or they have some observations about the Zodiac Killer's writings that aren't completely accepted by everyone. But Michael Cole, for instance, talks about how he believes the Zodiac was influenced by a book called The American Practical Navigator. Douglas Oswell and Mark Hewitt have talked about how the Zodiac could have been influenced by The Secret Agent by Joseph Conrad. So a lot of these things are coming from other works of literature, as well as things that like an operetta or things like a comic book, and they're not exactly original creations. It's more just taking somebody else's idea and doing it in a creepier way. But you guys have heard the questions that I'm going to be exploring in this multi-part series, Zodiac Killer, the Linkletter Connection. But I want to know, do you think that the influences from literature and comics and music that I was just talking about suggests that the Zodiac Killer was someone in his early 20s or mid 20s? Or does that sound like someone who's in a different age range? Because we have suspects that are younger, like Louis Myers, or I was talking about that other newer suspect, George Senda. I mean, newer to me learning about him. And then there are suspects that are much older, like Shel Cavalli, who was 50 years old at the time, Guy Ward Hendrickson, who was 54, and of course George Hill Hodel, who would have been 61. What do you think about the writings of the Zodiac Killer and some of the examples that I had just listed off? And I just remembered, I was trying to remember it as I was sharing this with you guys, that I frequently cite the video from Skating Crow Productions that was talking all about how the Zodiac could have been heavily inspired by T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, even to the point where she said, whoever, I'm the anonymous host, I don't know her name, she said that The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot could even have been the playbook for the murder of Paul Stine, the Zodiac's final crime on October 11th of 1969. But it's an important question to ask, because Robert Linkletter would have been a 24-year-old suspect. And I've discussed this with some other people. I mean, I'm also the host of the Zodiac Killer channel's Interview with the Experts series, and I talked to people privately. One of them was Drew Beeson, author of Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer, and we were talking about some younger suspects in their early 20s, and he said that it might be a little bit difficult for someone to have composed all of the Zodiac's material, some very specific things for a 23 or 24 or 25-year-old who didn't have advanced education in mathematics, engineering, or the sciences. But, what do you think? I mean, because I was mostly talking about the references from literature. Those comments that Drew made were more about radians or the complicated design of the 340 cipher that was solved about a year and a half ago. And you can weigh in the comments section down below. Now, here's some differences between the death of Diane Linkletter and the Zodiac crimes. Diane Linkletter fell from a 6th-floor window. Officially, her death has been ruled as suicide. The Zodiac absolutely did not push anyone. The Zodiac absolutely did not stage any scene to be an accident. In fact, the Zodiac was quite to the contrary. The Zodiac not only shot people, but he even wrote in a letter that, they were shot 9 times, and as well as calling in saying, there are 2 kids that have been shot, I'm the one who did it. Or, how about writing the message on the car door after Lake Berryessa? Now, the people who think that Robert Linkletter was the Zodiac Killer absolutely say that he was trying to cover up the death of Diane Linkletter, and that he murdered his sister because, as I said before, she had some knowledge about him being the Zodiac. Maybe it was just a moment of homicidal rage. I don't know. This is all just speculation. But I do think that there's a certain value in speculation because we are trying to examine all of the possibilities, and this would definitely be something that someone would not want to draw attention to if they were indeed a serial killer, and a serial killer who had a lot of media attention at the time. But I do need to point out, though, in regards to media attention, Robert Linkletter is somebody that comes up in the California underworld, more or less. He also gets tied into the Manson family, and they speculate about was he or was he not at Cielo Drive on the night of the murders when Sharon Tate and the other 4 people were stabbed, or was he present previously in the house on the night before, or earlier on? I mean, there are a lot of stories and theories out there, and Mae Russell's original comments about the Zodiac Killer connection to Robert Linkletter were an early version of the Zodiac Manson connection. Mae Russell, again, the host of Dialogue Conspiracy. So, in the next coming episodes, I think that we're going to get some answers, and I know that this is probably a little bit premature for me saying that, but I think we're going to get the answers as to who was the real Ed Durston, the car salesman or the media player. And I think that one's going to be a pretty easy one to clarify, and if it's not, then we won't have much of a case. But I expect that we will. And the second one would be about identifying Robert Linkletter's whereabouts on October 4th of 1969, and the timing is very important because Diane Linkletter passed away at 10:30 a.m., and they say that after 90 minutes after the fall, when she was in the hospital, she passed away. That means that the fall occurred around 9 o'clock in the morning, and then by the time she's in the hospital, an hour and a half later, she has passed away. And we would want to find her brother's whereabouts. But those are all things that I'm going to be doing throughout this podcast series. What I would invite you to respond to is that, do you think that someone who was 24 years old would have been the Zodiac Killer, and do you think that that's an appropriate age? And what is some guy like Robert Linkletter doing, talking about putting the Radians on top of Mount Diablo, and just share anything you'd like about that. And really, which one do you agree with? Do you think that there is a more mature presence in the Zodiac letters? And I mean, I talk about this all the time on the channel, so I'm not really holding anything back. I used to think that the Zodiac was someone in his early 20s. Now I tend to think that early 30s to early 40s, and it has nothing to do with any of the technical scientific jargon. Like the Zodiac said, I'm mildly serious to know how much money you have on my head, and he spelled it Cerous, which is just like the chemical cerous oxalate. But I'm not talking about any of those things. Just when I read the Zodiac letters, as well as the solutions to the ciphers that we have, if you were to just ask me, what do I think about the person's age? Who wrote this? A 20-year-old, a 24-year-old, or someone who is in his early 30s to early 40s? I have to go with the latter, and I don't even have a specific number that I can put on. I mean, if you ask me how tall and how big do I think the Zodiac Killer was, I would say he was 5 feet 10.5 inches tall and weighed 210 pounds. But when it comes to age, early 30s to early 40s, so I think we're dealing with someone just a little bit older. But if I'm wrong, I will gladly admit it, and because if I'm wrong about anything, that means that I'm just one step closer to the actual truth, and then this possibility has been eliminated. So please look out for some future episodes in Zodiac Killer, the Linkletter connection. This one is really just an introduction. I know I did an introduction last week, but this is the real introduction in part one. So everybody stay tuned to the channel. You can always like and subscribe to follow along with all of these true crime discussions. And anybody can write the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box, as well as the Instagram page, BlackBoxNed88, and I will see you over there on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.